Joining us today on Forum TV is Dr. Bernd Althusmann, a distinguished German political and public policy leader with extensive experience in economic strategy, digitalization, education, and international cooperation. He previously served as Deputy Minister President and Minister for Economic Affairs, Labor, Transport, and Digitalization in the German state of Lower Saxony. He currently leads the Canada office of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Ottawa. It is a pleasure to welcome you on our show.
Thank you for having me.
I want you to tell us about the activity of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, especially here in Canada. What is your mission and what is your goal?
We have more than 100 offices worldwide. In North America, in Washington, in New York, in Canada, here in Ottawa, and also in Africa. Our mission is democracy. And in these times of uncertainty, democracy is on defense everywhere against autocratic states. The authoritarian states, the autocratic states are nowadays in the majority. And therefore, the global West should be aware of that and has to defend against autocratic states. And that is our mission, to give people a platform to discuss about current challenges here in Canada, worldwide, from climate change to security issues, security and defense, or what is about resources for the future? Where can the deep partnership between Canada and Germany much more deeper for the future, because as allies we have to work very close together, and we stand together, especially looking to the attacks of Russia against the Ukraine, not only since 2022, but looking back since 2014. The war is still going on, and therefore Germany stands very strong behind the Ukraine to defend democracy, freedom and peace.
What more do you think countries like Canada and Germany do to support Ukraine?
First Chancellor of the Federal Republic, Konrad Adenauer, used to say democracy is more than a parliamentary form of government. It's a worldview rooted in the conception of dignity, value and inalienable rights of every single human being. And that means Canada and Germany, as allies in NATO, have to stand strong together to assist the Ukraine against the full-scale Russian invasion. Canada and Germany have been among the largest supporters of Ukraine. Canada has committed over 24 billion in multifaceted assistance for the Ukraine, and additional support announced in December 25 to back the International Monetary Fund program for Ukraine, as well as support its recovery and construction. Canada reacted as one of the first with sanctions against Russia. Canada, through the bridge, is now able to get access to a 150 billion defense instrument, and there's enough to do for the near future to defend the free West and the allies in NATO against aggression of the cring states, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and to assist Ukraine in fighting back Russia. The words of Canadian Defence Minister McGuinty: Canada will continue strengthening collective defence, enhancing Arctic and North Atlantic security, delivering tangible contributions alongside allies and its partners. The German army and the German budget is more than 100 billion euros, a gigantic, I would say so, unprecedented sum. And we tried our best to assist Ukraine in their fight. Supporting Ukraine means at the end strengthening our security in Europe and worldwide for the global West. The Ukraine is, so to say, the shield of defending the free world in the moment.
In your view, is there a path back to the world order that was established after the Second World War? Because it seems like, what Canadian Prime Minister Carney called it, we're in a point of rupture right now. Do we need to build a new order that looks very differently and yet still delivers on the prosperity and the promise of prosperity and safety?
Worst scenario would be that the United States, under the current leadership, will become a more and more unreliable partner of NATO, or in NATO. Their aim is more looking on their own capacities and necessities, and it would be a capitulation for Europe, for our common freedom and democracy. My former colleague in Germany, the Member of Parliament Roderich Kiesewetter, said that borders in Europe would be shifted by force and the law of the strongest would be established. The Russian zone of influence would spread, NATO would be finished. We will have much more conflicts also on the territories of the current Ukraine, including Crimea. We celebrated in May 1985, we celebrated Day of Liberation. It took 40 years, the change from the so-called 0 hour after the Second World War, then to the Day of Liberation. Day of Liberation was an opportunity for Germany to come back to the international order in peace and freedom, and to defend peace and freedom. And therefore, we should assist the Ukraine as much as we can. We have to be very careful and should see this window of opportunity for freedom on the one hand. On the other hand, there is only one nation who could stop every war immediately in Europe or against the Ukraine. It's Russia.
You participate and co-host and organize a number of events in Ottawa and across Canada. One event that you have co-hosted recently on foreign information manipulation and interference. How do we in the West collectively fight against disinformation, misinformation, not only Russian in particular, but also other foreign interference, while at the same time preserving the freedom of speech that I do believe we all share the belief in?
The so-called CRINC states, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, trying to destabilize democracies with misinformation, translate their messages in many languages to polarize in a society. They are very active, especially Russia, with bots and others in social media. Russia seeks disruption for disruption's sake, wanting to create havoc in and out for information ecosystems to achieve its goal of destabilizing democracies, sowing division, and undermining trust in institutions. And that is a very threatening development because more and more people lost reliance on their politician representatives and rely on misinformation sources. Therefore, we had this conference here in Ottawa, now the second time together with the European Union delegation, because they are also aware that especially Russia tries to, in election times, tries to influence voters. We should be aware of that and we should defend against that. I was Minister for Education in Lower Saxony and responsible for a few thousand schools and more than 1 million pupils and 80,000 teachers. And what is our responsibility? We have to educate our children very early in handling social media, handling with information, and not to use only one source. Double check it, and please talk with your teachers, talk with your parents about what you have heard. Is that true, or is it only populism or misinformation? That is, from my point of view, really an important task for us as parents or adults.
How closely do you think the European partners, Germany and Canada, need to work on really materializing all of the agreements that have been signed? And by that I mean CETA, the free trade agreement, SAFE program, and others in terms of defense cooperation, in terms of critical minerals.
CETA is the one way we deleted more than 90%, 98.5% of all tariffs between Europe and Canada. Therefore, it makes sense to deepen this CETA agreement between Canada and Europe. We have to work, especially in the defense sector, but also on energy. We have built the harbor in Wilhelmshaven, also in Hamburg and in Emden, and harbors in our North Sea coast, especially for LNG import. In the 90s and in the times of Chancellor Merkel, we were very depending on Russian gas. And some accuses her now to have deepened this depending on Russian gas. But we all have lived in that time on very cheap gas deliveries from the Russian industry. No one was really aware that this could change someday, but we should have. There were many signals. Maybe we have not seen them, but at the end, we should rely on our allies with whom we are working now for centuries together, especially with Canada. Prime Minister Carney called Canada itself as a superpower on energy. Infrastructure has to be built. And why do we not try to bring Canada especially and Germany and Europe closer together on LNG, on critical minerals for our industries? We should try to strengthen our economies together. A strong economy is the best shield against all the threats of the future.
I think we have seen a major shift in terms of how we view defense. What would, in your opinion, success look like for this transatlantic cooperation and unity in 5 years as we undergo all these changes?
Peter F. Drucker, one of the fathers of the so-called management of objectives, a researcher on economic sector, he said someday, the greatest danger in turbulent times is not the turbulence itself, but to act with the logic of yesterday. Sometimes I have the feeling we try to solve problems or to get on challenges with instruments of the past. Looking back to the last 5-10 years, no one was aware that these battlefields of a war would change so dramatically into the direction of AI, drones, and the new future of defense. And looking to the future of the partnership between Germany, Canada, European Union, we have some discussions in Germany about will Canada become a member of the European Union. 60% of Canadians say, okay, let's, because no one knows in which way the US will go now. Protectionism, populism, 51st state, punishing tariffs, and so on. Let's further look into the future and try to get closer and closer together with the European Union, maybe with the aim at the end becoming a member. Mark Carney pronouncing the new world order with middle powers, because the superpowers standing against each other, this idea, this vision, could be a very good one. But announcing the new strategy for the middle powers of the world, for example, Canada and Germany, what does that mean for sovereignty? And Canadians are, in a very good sense, patriotic to their country, and sovereignty is standing above all. If Canada would be a member of the European Union, not losing a part of sovereignty, not losing a part of their own responsibility for their budget and so on. At the end, it makes sense to come to a situation where Canada and the European Union, on the current basis of agreements, can work as close as much they can together. We should be in Europe more aware of a potential field of conflict in the near future. In the shadow of Ukraine, we have developments in the Arctic, at the northern flank of NATO, the activities of Russia, the activities of China, the further developments looking to the trade routes. At the end, it makes for Russia and China, it makes sense to have shorter routes, and therefore we should be aware what will happen in the Arctic. 40% of the Arctic belongs to Canada, of the maritime sector, and that means at the end, Canada, Iceland, the Nordic states, Scandinavian states, Germany, Great Britain, France is also, We are allies looking to the north as well as we look to the eastern part.
No lack of challenges these days, that's for sure. My guest today was Dr. Bernd Althusmann from the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Ottawa. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Pleasure. Thank you.